questions. So I'm happy to stay even a little bit longer if there are more questions, but I think we will be fine. All right. I will do a quick first introduction and then introduce, or let the panel introduce themselves. So this will be the only 3 slides you are going to see today. Just give a little bit of context of what we're doing today. So the reason we wanted to do this roundtable today is often, when I scroll through LinkedIn or at a conference, I often got the feeling that right now, when we talk about AI and scholarly publishing, the focus often goes straight away to how do we catch the bad actors, which is obviously a very important use case for AI. So how do we catch the bad actors? How do we catch the students who produce false manuscript? I think those are really important questions, but it's not all. So today we wanted to ask more of the bigger questions. So, for example, should manuscripts be polished for language clarity or preserved in their individuality? In the age of AI, for instance, what does originality actually mean? So, and as a researcher, often people ask themselves maybe, what am I allowed to use? So, and these are not abstract questions. These are questions from real researchers, editors, and publishers, and they deal with it every day. So we thought today would be a great chance to give a little bit of context, opinions. Actually, I think a broad spectrum of opinions about all these questions, so that you, the participants, can make up your own mind and make new impulses, new approaches for your daily work. So no worries, there is no product presentation from anyone today. This is all opinions and exchange. Okay, so we prepared some talking points for you. It will be about authors' current pains, workflows, but also want to try to change perspective a little bit, talking about authors and publishers. We're going to talk about AI as an opportunity for cultural change, actually, of course. Also, we want to cover risks, limits, and then closing round. And I hope for a lot of questions from your side as well. So let me switch to the next slide. And now I would like to ask our 4 panelists today to introduce themselves. And Nausicaa, if you would like to start, that would be great.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Carsten and Frederick, for having me. My name is Nausicaa. I'm an art historian. I specialize in dangerous images. And I'm here in Barcelona, where it's very, very hot. And the airco is not working, but I will try to keep my brain cool. And I specialize, amongst other things, in algorithmic censorship. So I look at dangerous images all the way from the Stone Age until today, but I'm also looking at how images are censored on social media and in search engines today.
Right, thank you. And excuse me, Nausicaa, I forgot. I should say Professor Nausicaa because you just received how can I say in English? You're a professor now. Let's put it
Yes, I
simple as
am.
that.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
It's very fresh and very wonderful, and I don't get tired of people mentioning it. So thank you.
Yeah.
So, Karsten, can I ask a question with Professor Nazika?
Yes.
So, what do you mean by dangerous images?
So any image that has been attacked, so think about images of gods or images of nudity, images that are symbolizing political ideologies that people don't agree with, or even images that just don't have the right painting style suddenly for a new regime. So any image that has been called dangerous at any place and at any time, and the reasons are infinite.
Okay, so any image that can potentially be offensive for any
Yes.
group
Or
of people.
or where people pretend it's offensive for political gain. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Professor Manish, would you like to continue?
Yes. Uh, so I am Professor Manish Kumar. So I am a professor of bioinformatics and data science at University of Delhi South Campus. So I specialize in using machine learning and developing different type of biological algorithms for predicting different biological phenomena.
Thank you. Dr. Hannah, would you like to continue?
Yeah, thank you. Hi everyone. I'm Hannah. I'm not a professor, unfortunately not. I am a veterinarian by profession. Did a PhD in biomedical science and used to work in research also for a while. Then I also for a venture capital firm investing in innovations, especially in the healthcare area. And last year, I founded a new company where we use actually AI for medical scribing, especially for veterinary doctors. So that's what I do at the moment. And I'm based in Berlin.
Yeah, that's great. And I understood you're still active reviewer, although you're
Yeah,
not
that's true.
more academic.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's great. And Nikesh, please.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Nikesh Gosalia, Chief Partnership Officer at Cactus Communications. I've been with Cactus for over 18 years, played variety of roles, been on the researcher side and interacted with researchers all across the globe. But in my current role, I focus on partnerships and strategic alliances with publishers, societies, universities, and funders. And really looking forward to this discussion today. Thanks, Carsten. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Yeah, thank you for the introduction. And yeah, thank you again to you that you made time for us to join and to get to know your opinions and perspective. Okay, so I think we are good to go. We are set to dive into the first questions. So let's talk a little bit about authors, workflows, maybe current pain points, and where there are opportunities for innovation. So let me ask this first to everyone. So what pain points do you see as an author or working with authors right now, or being, I know Hannah, so you're active author, I believe, but even what pain points did you experience back then when you were writing papers? Yeah. So there is no order. Whoever wants to start, please feel free.
Well, I can go first. So I mean, I don't publish that much anymore. So as Carsten said, I sometimes do reviews for journals, but I can still remember the times when I published a lot, and I think, I mean, there were always two kind of persons, the ones that like to write publications and the ones that didn't like the writing process, right? And I mean, everybody was either the one or the other one. And it turned out that, if you want to become a good scientist, you needed to be able to write also quite well in order to publish stuff. And I think that changed in terms of you still need to have like a good scientific data set maybe, or like other data sets to publish, and you still have to have like the creativity to come up with something, but you're no longer forced to be like a really good writer in terms of grammar, in terms of, how to structure things. I guess this is something where we can get help, and that could also help a lot of younger researcher to get through this writing process that can be very painful and actually like kind of extend the PhD period for many years if you haven't been a good writer before.
Mhm.
Yes, so can I come in?
Please.
Yeah, so I absolutely agree with Hannah. So I have several students, both a postdoc and PhD. So what I feel that there are two different type of students, one who can do the experiment and second who can write. So there are very few students who can do experiments also and write also. So the a student who can do experiments, so if you tell them that, okay, so now you have enough data to publish, so why don't you write the paper? Then it would be very difficult. It would be nightmares for them because somehow they don't have courage to communicate the data either due to no, I don't know why this happens. So, and then there are students who are very lazy in carrying out experiments. So they do few experiments, but they can write in such a way that it looks like that they have done wonders. So I think these type of AI tools will help the former type of students who can do the experiment, but they are either not proficient in writing or they are lazy in writing, particularly in Indian setup where English is not the first language. It's a very stark problem. So, and also people generally think that using AI is not good. I am not in that, I am not of that view. I think that whatever it takes, if you can communicate your result, then whatever tool you can use, it is good. And also, like, let's suppose some student write a manuscript and give that to supervisor, then supervisor will also definitely help. So at that place, there is a new thing that is AI based assistance. If it comes in picture, then it will save the time of both the student and the PI also. So I don't think there is any harm in using AI.
I think just to add to what Hannah and Manish have mentioned, uh, pretty much the genesis of how Cactus started as an organization. I think when we were talking to a lot of researchers in early days, there was a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety around the submission process, and there was a lot of uncertainty, not knowing whether a paper meets journal requirements, whether it'll get desk rejected, and there are lots of processes that they have to look at before even submitting, and after submission also there is sometimes lack of enough clarity. I think the other is peer review delays, so long turnaround times that slow down the research cycle as well. So yeah, just to add to some of the other pain points, these are pretty much recurring pain points that we hear.
I beg to differ with Nikesh at one point. Like, I am not a big fan of using AI for review. So I think if we are submitting a paper, it's for review. That means there is someone who is expert in reviewing in
Sure.
that work and who is going to review the work that is somebody has submitted for publication. And uh, it is my firm belief that there should not be any AI for reviewing the work. I am not talking about the formatting and other things. Definitely, whatever it takes, you can put in that thing for processes other than the review.
Yeah. Maybe just to clarify, Professor, what I was trying to address was just the first part of the question, which was around what are the pain points that authors might be facing. Whether AI can help or no, I mean, yeah, that's a pretty big question, and yeah, we can talk a little bit more about that. But I agree with you that it's still not there. It might play a role, but yeah, we can talk about it.
So I was reading an article in Nature the other day where there was a quote from a computational biologist, which really scared me because they were interviewing researchers about their use of generative AI. And this computational biologist said, it's never really the goal of anyone to write papers. And I thought, oh God, so I understand that ultimately the question is indeed, why do we write papers? Why do we write books, right? And there are really two opposing philosophies, I'd argue. On the one hand, it's just to get the information out there as soon as possible in as succinct and clear a way as possible. I think if you follow that path, generative AI is fantastic, right? Especially because of the language barrier, about the rapidity, because you can be a fantastic scientist who just is not a writer, and therefore you get the information out there in the best, fastest way possible. So if you see papers just as a conveyor belt for information, as a tool, as a means to an end, I think generative AI in a lot of ways is fantastic if you use it correctly. Now, for me, as somebody from the humanities who often tend to have a bit of an imposter syndrome, like, why do we exist? What is the point of us? We don't cure cancer. We talk about other people's works of art, and other works of literature. What is our contribution? There's a tendency to sometimes follow the natural sciences and imitate them. So there's a lot of stuff written in the humanities that is very functional and pragmatic, to get the information out there as soon as possible. I, on the other hand, believe that very often the special thing about essays and books in the humanities is the form. So it's not just the information, it's not just the content, but it's how it's written. So the metaphors, the sequence, the specific voice of the author. And very often when you write in that way, you also think in that way. And my worry is very much that with that sort of very pragmatic mindset, we produce papers purely to get the information out there, that mindset is going to become even more dominant, and that we're going to lose the pure pleasure of losing yourself in an essay which is exploring things and opening pathways to imagination, and that we'll be too scared to even develop them.
Please, Hannah.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something to that because I think that's an important point. And if we I think if we talk about what the author's current pain points, then we must admit that most of the authors publish is exactly as you said, to get the information out there, not even because they want to get the information out there, because it's kind of part of their career, right? If you're in academia, then I mean there's no choice but publishing, and or if you're like a young researcher in a PhD program or whatever, you're kind of forced to publish, and you do that for the sake of publishing and not because you really want to. I mean, it's nice if people they read and cite your work, right? But it's not your main goal here. So I guess that is something that is totally different from what you just described. Like, what actually do the people want to read? Like, what do they like? I mean, is it pure information extraction, or is it something that they really like? And also, like in biomedical science, for example, you always had authors that were able to tell a story in a paper, even if it's a very, very scientific one, and you read that and you think that, yeah, that's just so nice to read. And I mean, if you do your own research and you just extract information from it, you usually read the abstract and then maybe something about the method stuff, and then you write it down and you use it. But sometimes you find a paper that is very well written, and I think this is something we will still not be able to do with AI so far, because it's kind of it's like you have good books and you have books that you like to read, and maybe some of them are not so much your taste. It's like the difference between you have an artsy movie and like mainstream movies kind of thing, right? So I guess, I mean, there will always be this difference.
Yeah, so I agree with what Nosky has told. So basically here there is the point where I think the AI will not ever pitch in, because to tell a story, particularly in sciences or in even in arts, you need to have very in-depth knowledge, and without that knowledge you cannot weave a story. So here I think we should not totally depend on the AI to write our papers or our stories, or whatever we are writing, but there should also be a trained person who can weave a interesting story around whatever he wants to convey.
Mhm.
Could I respond to that?
Yeah, please.
First of all, thank you so much. I'm always really happy when natural scientists really emphasize, the importance of good writing. It's not just, the humanities people out there screaming in the dusty corner.
So paper get rejected or accepted on the basis of writing.
Of writing.
So,
I guess
yeah.
my main concern, and I'm sort of torn it because I'm not a pessimist. I also see a lot of opportunities. So the scenario that I'm describing right now comes from, I guess, the worries that I have, but I also see opportunities. I guess my biggest worry is that the whole purpose or the definition of academic writing will be so much defined as just a vessel of information, almost like a user manual, that people will stop looking for the story in papers. So that the way people read and the way they use the medium of an essay or of a paper will be purely from the point of also as a reader of information extraction, and that they will not even be looking to read a story, almost like I don't expect to read a story when I read, the back of this bottle, right? It becomes, this is just a vessel of information. So I don't look for, oh my God, the ingredient list is really beautifully written. I'm going to cry now, I'm not waiting for it. And that is sort of my fear for academic writing, that it's going to become so rare that people won't be looking for it anymore.
I want to ask the two professors. I believe today there are also PhD students in the call. So if you would advise PhD students today, what would your advice on how to use AI would be today, as of today?
Manish, do you want to take this one first?
Yes, yes. So I always advise my PhD student ki write the first draft yourself and then use the AI, whatever tool you are using for polishing the paper. Because AI does not know what was your hypothesis and whether the result is confirming your hypothesis or not. It only the researcher or a learned person who knows the field, that person know. And if you use any AI is basically what? You put in some information, the algorithm has learned, and then it gives a very generalized thing, not a specific thing that we want to put in a research paper. But I am not against using AI. I always encourage my students to use AI. Even my students do a lot of coding. So I encourage that first you learn how to code. Then use AI to find your bug or expedite your work. You you should not be dependent solely on AI either for coding or for writing paper or whatever. Because if you are solely dependent on that, when you go to job market, you have to write your cover letters, all these things. And I have seen a mail that contains same information in 2 lines. Now they have 20 or 25 lines. And it clearly shows in the first instance that you have used some LLM to write that mail. So one has to be very careful about this thing.
I think it's great that you tell your students to write the first draft themselves, and then you can fine tune it. I don't think a binary response in this binary age is helpful. I think you have to allow things in. And as you're speaking about this, writing the first draft yourself, I'm reminded of an interview I once heard, which sounds very random, but which was with Tom Hanks, the actor, Forrest Gump dude. He collects typewriters, and he was doing this interview not as an actor, but why he loves typewriters and why he wrote some book that he published of short stories also on a typewriter. And it was like, why? Why a typewriter? And he said that he thinks differently when he writes on a typewriter. He thinks differently, and it's different from thinking when he writes by hand, which is fluid but slow. And it's different from writing on a computer, which is faster than a typewriter. And in a computer, you can erase mistakes, whereas on a typewriter, you only get one shot. So he says that when he sits in front of a typewriter, he has to think in a way that the typewriter sort of suggests him to. He has to create sentences in his mind and then put them on the paper, and that creates a feedback loop. And I think that's something that we sometimes forget, that when we write, we think through writing. And the moment that you are writing, and there's already, even this sort of autocomplete text that you have in a lot of processes, right, where it finishes the sentence for you, it can remove the necessary friction and the obstacle that you have, right? Just like writing on a typewriter is an obstacle way of writing. For me, where that true creativity comes from, this idea of I'm writing and I'm seeing something, and that brings out the great idea. So I think exactly as somebody just wrote in the comments as well, fact checking, fine tuning, all of these things are really important with generative AI. But I think it's really important that we allow ourselves the error and the difficulty of the first draft, because so much comes out of that first friction.
Anna, please.
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, also in terms of, when you're in research, in any kind of research, you look for actually something new, right? And it's like an innovative process that you do. And I mean, the nature of LLMs is kind of, give you like the bias of what is actually expected. So that means, I mean, the output is by nature is probably not a real innovation, but rather something that is already like the average of what like all the people out there would think, or maybe also a little group would think. So I guess that if you don't have to, or if you don't do the creation process on yourself, like thinking about what should come out there, then it's very hard to figure out something really that is really new, and to find a new hook or angle or whatever. And this I think this really applies to every writing process, and it not even depending on like in which field you are active.
Okay, thank you. So we have one question in our Q&A. So maybe for everyone who joined a little bit later, so in Zoom you will find a Q&A button, and you can ask questions there at any time, and it will pop right up, and we can fit it into the panel. And there's one. I'm going to read the question and then hand it over to our panelists. So I read, on this first topic about writing, what are the panelists' views on the extent to which the research is the data, the experiment results, the code, versus the narrative, the arguments presented in the paper? If it's the former, reliance on Gen AI to write the paper is less problematic, I would assume. There's a little bit of nodding here. So, to sum up the question, as far as I understand it, what is the research? Is the paper the research? Sometimes, yes. Is the or is it the actual data, the code, or the narrative? Yeah. Yeah. So would you say that Gen AI depends a little bit on the discipline, how much you should use it to write? What do you think?
No, I think the research is not the paper. The result is the data on which your paper is based. So in a paper, what is the content? Actually, it's what was your hypothesis and what is your result, and how the result that you have got using whatever experimental mode, how it gel with other facts which are available. So I don't think paper is the research. So Gen AI can be used only to polish the result. You can get few facts, but whatever is my experience, that if you put a table in Gen AI, it will only summarize the table. It will not give you any new fact. You can get new fact only if you know what was your hypothesis and whether the result that you have got, it is supporting the hypothesis or contradicting the hypothesis.
Mhm. Anna, please.
Well, I wouldn't really disagree, but maybe add that sometimes you might get new facts also with Gen AI. I mean, like, if you carry out an experiment, I agree. First of all, you need a hypothesis, like why are you doing this, right? Are you producing this kind of data, right? And this has to come from somewhere. But then, I mean, in real life, how it usually is you do an experiment, then you get results, and you usually get something you didn't expect. And then I think it's kind of also AI can come up with suggestions like where this could come from, right? Like help you figure out why this happened, help you figure out why maybe your hypothesis is still right, but you did something wrong, or maybe your hypothesis is not right because something else was going on. So I guess like it's rather than like your supervisor would do maybe a job of like sparring. You're still like in the driver's seat, right, and decide whether you want to take that in or not. But still, it can help to go through this research process to to find something new.
Professor Nausicaa, please.
Yeah, I think that's a really good term, Hannah. This term of sparring partner, right? And that how much we learn and develop through sparring with, and putting the things that we do to the test, right? That's the whole point of why we do science, right? We have a hypothesis. It usually pans out completely different, same in art history, and it's at the surprise where things happen. I guess my concern, this is again speaking from a more pessimistic point of view, what I'm worried about with using AI as a sparring partner is that it's a very it's a sparring partner that we can easily manipulate, and it easily manipulates us in the sense that it creates a sort of situation of frictionless exchange, right? You have a certain idea, you use AI as a sparring partner, and you fine tune it and make it more and more and more specific towards where you want to go. Whereas in my experience, the best sparring partners are the ones who say something and you're like, what has that got to do with anything? Right? So you're talking and they say something completely random. And with ChatGPT, you'd be like, no, that's wrong. I mean something else. Oh, sorry. And ChatGPT just adjusts and course corrects the way you want to go. Whereas the best ideas that I've had is where people say something that is completely random to me, or where I'm not getting my message across and I have to repeat it so many times until they do get it, or where they say something to me which is so random that it suddenly sparks a whole new channel of thought. So my worry is a bit that we will lose the capacity, again, speaking from a techno-pessimist perspective, that we lose the capacity of truly difficult, cumbersome, seemingly useless, unproductive conversations that for me are the most productive. So I'm worried in general about streamlining things and making them so optimized that we lose, the lucky coincidences, the friction and the serendipity that usually works so well with true creativity.
Okay. All right. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and also thank you for the question. So I think we heard a lot right now on the perspective of authors. So what I can already see is that it's, even though, as you said it, Nausicaa, we are in the binary age, maybe the answer are not binary, and I appreciate the balanced view here. So let's get a little bit more perspective from the publisher's side. Nikesh, you not only work with authors, you have partnerships with a lot of publishers as well. Can you, for starters, sum up a little bit what are trying to get publishers out of AI? What do they hope to gain?
Yeah. So thank you for that, Carsten. And so, in my experience, publishers value workflow streamlining, lighter editorial workloads, smoother peer review processes that automation can potentially offer. Some of that is already happening, and I just typed out my response to a question as well. That happy to share some live examples. But I think the maybe one of the biggest concerns or issues that publishers are facing currently is a surge in submissions. And if you look at all of the publicly listed publishers, you will see data where number of submissions have gone up much higher than the acceptances. And the major concern is the rise in questionable or even fraudulent manuscripts that would land at the editorial desk. So they are under increased pressure to handle higher volumes efficiently, while at the same time, of course, maintaining rigorous quality standards. As a result, I think their expectations of AI-powered tools have gone beyond the operational efficiency. So the ultimate goal is, how can we safeguard reputation? How can we ensure quality? How can we build trust with our readers and reviewers? And some of that solutioning is something that we are currently working on. They are already deployed, which not only deliver technical enhancement, but also offer deep, expertise, so that publishers can balance efficiency and integrity. So it could be an automated set of research integrity checks, followed by, of course, human in the loop. It could be bringing some of these checks upstream so that the authors in the first go are able to submit, for lack of a better word, a polished, a cleaner manuscript, which then reduces pressure in the downward stream. And there, for example, one of the tools that we've developed is called PaperPal, which is used by more than 2.5 million researchers, and it's already helping them or assisting them in their writing process. I hope that kind of gives a flavor to your question, Carsten.
Yeah. Okay. Does anyone respond?
Yeah, I would like to respond because I certainly reminded of a very very recent incident. So I have submitted a paper to one of the journal. I don't want to name the journal. So after 1 or 2 days, I got back that there is 80% plagiarism. So I ran a plagiarism check using Turnitin, and what I found that all the references that I have mentioned at the end of paper that were flagged as plagiarized. So I definitely think that there was no human interference. Otherwise, the person which are handling those things, they must have figured out that this is not a plagiarism. So here we have to be very careful about deploying only the AI-based submission checking system.
Okay. And Nikesh, maybe, yeah, Nausicaa, you go first, please.
I think one of the issues that we have right now is that now we're in a period of exponential growth, right? Where even AI researchers themselves have described this as a sort of period where you're looking at a phenomenon like a storm or something like a crazy storm, right? Even people who are creating generative AI have no idea where it will lead, right? So it's very unpredictable. However, just because it's new in that sense, I don't think the problem that we're facing right now, where, the paper mill issue, where we're going to be flooded by more and more and more papers, is caused by generative AI. I think it's just a scaled up version of a problem that needed to be solved long ago, which is the publish or perish culture in academia, where people, which Hannah mentioned before as well, right? Where the problem is that people don't necessarily publish things because they want to publish things, but because they have to. So where you have people dividing up one article into 15 articles, I'm slightly exaggerating, just to get more publications out of it. And my hope, in a sense, is that rather than that we're going to use stopgap solutions, which are, okay, we're going to create another AI to deal with the flood of generative AI articles to detect them and triage them. My hope is that besides that, I think you can use a lot of generative AI to make publishing easier. But my hope is that our attitude towards publishing will change, and that finally, which I think people have been calling about this for decades, but my hope is that finally people will start really demanding to have deep research, profound research, and stop doing the whole, oh, you published 20 papers, you're amazing. Oh, you published 3, you are not, and to really come up with a mindset where if somebody spent several years writing something, it's a good thing, not a bad thing. So my hope is, in a sense, that we'll be forced by this floodgate of the floodgates of opening, and we're being flooded by all these papers. My hope is that this will actually force us to publish less rather than more.
Is this Nikesh, is this something you so you're a little bit the voice of authors and publishers here. Yeah, it would be nice. Do you have a perspective or experiences to that?
Yeah, I mean, I to unfortunately for Nausicaa, I think we are not hearing that on the street. I think more and more conversations with publishers. I think they're still trying to see, how can they, for lack of a better word, get as many papers as possible. Open access in many ways has pushed that in that direction where it's become a volume game, and but at the same time, how do we find balance, and as we know, from the famous book, The Genius of And, so productivity and quality. So how do we uh, not increase the number of people but still use smarter ways? How do we bring the problem upstream where researchers can start fixing this on their own in a honest manner, and then the workload is manageable for the editorial offices? But yeah, I think not a lot of conversation, to be honest, in terms of let's publish lesser or reduce volumes. The conversation is mainly in the direction of balancing all of this wherever possible. Let's use AI, and the importance of the human in the loop.
Yeah. So that also brings us a little bit to the questions. So much it's published. So does it or did it actually change how people are reading? So do people read more now? Yeah.
I mean, I top of mind, I don't have exact data points, but I know that some of the numbers are quite shocking from past data, which suggests that a bulk of papers are not actually read, in totality. So with increasing number, I don't think that stat will change in the positive direction. Just my personal opinion. But I think probably smarter ways of discovering content, and
Yeah.
looking at how you can create tools that recommend the right kind of articles to you, some keyword matching and stuff like that. But yeah, just staying on the question, Carsten, I don't think people read a lot, and that stat will only probably get worse.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't have any data points here as well for that question, but we do have readers also in the panel. Maybe Professor Manish, did your reading behavior change over time, over the last 2 years, with the increasingly volume of papers?
Yes, definitely it has changed.
Mhm.
So earlier I used to subscribe to the email alert. Now I have Twitter. So I just uh, sort the papers that I find interesting over the Twitter, and then now it's X, sorry. And also with generative AI like Perplexity, I have a very nice summarization tool. So I use that. So I just download the table of content and put it there. So it can give me a very succinct summary of different papers.
Okay.
So definitely it has, my reading behavior has changed. And one disclaimer, I don't know whether it is due to availability of these tools or increase in my workload.
Yes. Yeah, only one data point. That's true. Yeah. And anyone else?
I think there was a statement by Stephen Hawking a few years before his death, that if the exponential growth that we experience, this is from 2018, would continue, there would be 10 or more papers in the field of theoretical physics published every second with no one to read them. So we are living now also in an era where originality and quantity and productivity and efficiency are very highly valued, right? So as a researcher, you have to be original, you have to be quick, you have to be deep, you have to be relevant. And a lot of these things can be automated in the sense that there are researchers who are already forecasting that soon there will be generative AI that will create hypotheses for us by doing a sort of meta review of all the things that have been published and saying, oh, what's missing, right? So all of that can create a sort of closed system, also of utility. And my hope is sort of, even though I agree with you, Nikesh, I think right now word on the street is very much, how do we keep up with the flood of papers and how do we create more tools to keep up with them? I feel like we cannot continue in that old system infinitely. So either we will have to completely redefine what reading means. I think it's a really great question, Carsten, where reading will just be generated syntheses, as we're seeing right now in also software like Sites, for instance, or where we are going to completely redefine actually what we think research is. And if we do that, we will also have to redefine what originality is. And I think the real originality and creativity happens, and AI can certainly assist with that, but it happens in spaces of error, of doubts, of friction, of stumbling upon things, of making mistakes, of backtracking. And I feel almost like if we automate a lot of the processes, hopefully we will finally also live in a scientific system where there'll be time, so a sort of slow science approach, where we can use generative AI tools to automate some tasks, but where we actually have time to really make genuine discoveries that cannot be easily automated and generated. But for that, we need a system change. And my techno-optimist side is hoping that this sort of massive flood of generative AI will help institutions, research institutions, and funders to rethink what science is and to demand that people dedicate more time.
Mhm.
I would just quickly add to that, because I'm also sometimes worried that because it's mainly also I guess a challenge for younger researchers now, because when you try to remember the last paper that you fully read, like, or the last articles you fully read, usually that is something that comes from like maybe a key opinion leader, something that with the high reputation in the field, who got some results and then kind of developed his own interpretation of these results. And this is something that you would still read, right? Because it gives you a different perspective maybe. But you would only do that because, this person actually is quite bright-minded and you trust this person maybe a lot. So for young people, it gets more and more complicated because, they don't have a reputation yet. So nobody's going to read that, even if they write actually good stuff. So there must be something that changes in the future, I guess, for them.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So this part of the roundtable was actually called Publish and Cherish. And I think we have to get back to that topic in, I don't know, 1 or 2 years again and revisit that. So maybe so there are a couple of questions here in the Q&A as well. Just wanna round up the perspective question on authors and publishers. And once again, Nikesh, your view here. So what do you think are the most main misunderstandings between authors and publishers when it comes to the use of AI?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. I think most common misunderstanding that I'm seeing, or when with conversations on both sides, is maybe about the responsibility. Many authors view AI as a simple behind the scenes assistant, but publishers stress the importance of transparency and disclosure. Authors may assume that minor AI use probably doesn't need reporting, while publishers expect openness because their ultimate goal is to build trust with readers and reviewers. So that definitely is one area. Another area of tension is around integrity. Publishers face a flood of questionable submissions, some of which are entirely AI generated. So their instinct is often to rely on AI detection tools, but such sweeping measures can backfire. I think there was one example that the team was talking to me about, and say an author whose first language is not English and has originally written a paper in Japanese. if he translates it using AI, then the entire paper may be flagged as AI generated. While publishers are adapting, there's also a need, for universities to shift policies towards encouraging responsible AI. And the third is, quality assurance. Some authors may think that a polished AI-assisted paper equates to publication readiness, but publishers know that readability doesn't mean robustness, and that evaluating originality, data integrity, ethical compliance, still requires human judgment. So yeah, I would say quality assurance, integrity, and then responsibility.
Mhm. Right. Yeah, thank you. And there was a question here. I think it's good we take this now. It was a question to Professor Manish. So I think at the beginning, Professor Manish, you mentioned that peer review should be done by humans. And I think this question is a follow-up to that. So I read the question: if peer review should remain human only, how can AI still reduce the workload? For example, format checks, ethic compliance without diluting expert judgment. Yeah, Professor Manish, do you have thoughts on that? Oh, okay, maybe yeah, maybe Nikesh, would you like to?
Sorry, the question was about the peer review, Carsten?
Yeah, so I read again: if peer review should remain human only, how can
Yeah.
AI still reduce the workload?
Right. Yeah. No, I mean,
Thanks.
yeah, no, thanks for that, Carsten. I again, had a slightly differing view to Professor Manish. I think that at some point of time, AI will have a role in peer review. I fully agree that it's not going to be fully automated or AI only. I think it's going to be some sort of an augmentation. So I feel, I mean, across the whole publication workflow, Carsten, and the others, I feel that AI will, and is already playing a certain role, which could be either in filtering the wrong kind of papers, or scanning and finding good science, or reducing workload, or the being the first pass or the second pass in terms of review on papers. So I think as we are expecting the number of submissions to increase because of the use of AI, I think automation will have a role to play in other areas as well. So will it completely compensate it? Perhaps no, but I think it's not that there'll be some areas which will remain human only and some which will be automation. I think automation and AI has a role to play all across the workflow.
No, I think it's good that we have the spectrum of opinions. I mean, this is yeah, that's a good sign that we, if we would all have the same opinion, then the world would all look the same. And now this gives us also the opportunity to design tools, design systems.
Yeah, and just to kind of add to that, Carsten, I mean, full disclosure, we recently had a hackathon, and one of the topics was around use of AI in peer review, and there is some work that is already happening. Is it there yet? Not yet, but could it play a role? I mean, I think it looks promising. We obviously have to test it out. We have to make it work. We need maybe a partner to work closely with us in terms of a publisher or society. But I think it has a role to play. I'm pretty confident.
Okay. All right. Any other thoughts? So I have a question for Dr. Anna. So we know each other sometime before, but haven't been in touch for some years. In the meantime, you also worked as a venture capitalist, and now you're a funder again. So that gives you a very broad spectrum of experience. And you also have a little bit of an outside view of our let's call it industry and academic system. What are your thoughts? What is are we already there yet that we use all the capabilities AI brings to us? In other words, do you use AI more at your daily task right now than you would use as a researcher?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I do really think so. I also think that usually when people talk about AI, especially in research and maybe some other topics as well, they kind of expect to be like like that AI is replacing stuff, or like AI is um, solving the biggest pain points we have. And I think there is actually room for that, but usually more like in the processes around it. Like, AI can, I mean, we touched that briefly. AI can replace so many workflow things, also for researchers, that nobody actually wants to do. Like, I don't know, like helping to structure things using, I don't know, citations in a correct way, these kind of things, right? That took usually a lot of time. You can automate your, I don't know, email programs. You can get some AI agents for other stuff. And nobody would actually talk about this, how much like would that help in the daily life, right? And I think in many other industries, there's more openness towards what kind of workflow processes can we replace by AI, because nobody wants to do that, and let us do what we actually want to do. And my feeling is, especially in academia, we are very like kind of we stick to the big discussion. Can AI do the research for us? Can AI like bring new hypotheses? Can AI do this and that? And there's a lot of like low-hanging fruits that could actually be tackled with AI. So I was like a couple of months ago, I did a review for a journal, and I didn't do that for quite some time. And I was actually shocked that they sent me the article, and they were like, "Yeah, but you're not allowed to use AI," because I was like, "Well, that's not how it works in real life anymore, right? I'm totally aware of that. You can't just use it, take the article and let it like fully rewrite by AI. That's totally clear. But for the little like hacks and stuff, you would use so many tools already, and I think that's something we're lacking behind in research and in academia especially.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. Anyone who would like to respond? Yeah. I think we heard some very good arguments and points why we should not we why there's reason to use AI, how it can be helpful. But there are also some concerns, risks, limits around. And this is one section we want to go next. There are a lot of questions actually here, so I don't know. We don't have to hurry, but I believe we have a lot of content here today. So yeah, let's get into this topic. And now, Zika, Professor now, Zika, I wanted to ask you. So your research is also around censorship, dangerous images. So I'm just going to read my question. So are we in danger of letting AI dictate how things should be done at the expense of creativity?
Yes, very much so, to answer briefly. Doesn't mean that it has to happen, but there's a huge risk. And I also just took a sneak preview at the Q&A because I'm curious. And I saw a really interesting and provocative statement from Dr. Tariq Ashraf saying, if yes, is AI destroying creativity? If yes, would not itself destroy AI as AI works through human creativity, which I think is a great, lovely, paradoxical loop. I think the problem with generative AI, in a nutshell, is that it creates a suggestion of a world of infinite possibilities. So if you look at, for instance, generative AI, how many images you can create, it's like a dream factory, right? It's like you are some kind of magical sun king emperor, like make me a movie of M&Ms sitting on horses, setting Barbies on fire. Okay. And it makes it for you, right? You can make any wish come true. It's like a genie. So it creates a sense of infinite possibility. Same with you write a text, you're like, okay, ChatGPT, turn this into a short, snappy video, into an animation, into a rap song, make it shorter. I could use that. Infinite possibilities. And I think all of this sort of sense of infinite possibilities makes us constantly question, like, well, AI is too good, we're stupid, we're little cockroaches, or not even, we're ants, right? We're going to get struck down by the brilliance of generative AI and there's going to be nothing left of us. And I think this hype narrative of generative AI being able to do everything that we want and that it scares us hides the fact how much AI does not let us do. So to give an example from images, if you go into any generative AI generator, and I'm not talking about the illegal ones that are very popular where you can upload, I don't know, a photo of your ex and make them naked. I'm talking about legal generative AI generators. You cannot usually make any existing public figures. So if I wanted to make a apocalyptic vision of Donald Trump, it officially wouldn't let me, even though we've seen them, right? We've all seen the Gaza Riviera video with Donald Trump, right? Sort of throwing dollars around. So many sort of regular lay people won't be able to make that. They wouldn't be able to make a video with Donald Trump, for instance, or they wouldn't be able to make an image that shows violence. They wouldn't be able to show an image that is satirical. So a lot of these generators have specific rules of what is and isn't allowed. And these rules are a lot stricter than the things that you see in newspapers or in museums made by actual people. So what I'm talking about is that you cannot make images that generate nudity or satire, which you think rightly so, right? Because kids are using these generators, so they have to be safe. However, if everybody is using these generators, they will stop thinking, is my fear, about images that are beyond the parameters that these generators allow you to use. So within this sort of space of infinite possibilities, there's a lot of stuff that isn't possible. And that is my sort of fundamental fear. And that is something that I saw also a question in the Q&A about literacy. This is something that we need to be aware about, that in this flood of infinite possibility, there's also a lot of censorship that is implicit. And the danger of that is not just that you are like, haha, I'm going to make, a satirical image of Donald Trump and it doesn't let me do it. And then you're very aware of it, right? Oh, that's the boundary. Okay, I'm going to call my illustrator friend and they're going to make a satirical image of Donald Trump. That's the censorship that you're aware of and that you can overcome. But the censorship that is more insidious and that you see throughout art history is that if censorship is strong enough, then people stop going there in their mind. They'll be like, okay, I'm not even going to think about an image that is satirical. I'm not even going to think about an image that is violent. And sometimes we need those images. We need to produce them. So the fear of censorship is that ultimately people stop imagining images because they know that they won't be allowed to prompt them.
Yeah. Professor Manish?
Yeah, unfortunately, my video frozen, so that's why I raised my hand.
Okay. Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yes, so I think Professor Nausicaa, you also answered the question of Dr. Tarek. Another question answered here in the Q&A. But let me ask you even a little bit more concrete. Do you see the risk that researchers may begin to self-censor when they're using AI?
I do see huge risks. First of all, to just give you an example of an artist self-censoring because of censoring algorithms. So I'm not talking about one of the things that I'm looking at a lot is also censoring algorithms. So algorithms that check social media where there's also a flood of images being uploaded and check if any images are inappropriate, right? So images that are inappropriate for Instagram, for instance. A lot of artists adjust to those criteria. It means that if you are an artist and you have a gallery show and you're going to take a photo of the gallery show and okay, hold on, in that picture of the gallery show, there's an image of a naked person. and that might get my account shut down, or it might get me shadow banned so that my viewers see very little of it. You know what? I don't think I'm going to hang that painting over there. So this is an example of somebody censoring in an analog, real world situation because of what the algorithm might do to them down the line, right? So this is a self-censorship that is also already playing out in what do we display in analog spaces. So this is an example where people sort of inhibit themselves without anybody asking them to, because they don't want to lose their exposure online. And a similar fear is now happening with the censorship that we've seen in the USA, where they just ran a search on gender, race, anything that is considered opposing to the ideology of the current government, and just dropping projects, which means that a lot of scientists right now are intentionally avoiding those words. Right. So you have detection algorithms that detect words like race or gender, and people stop using them because they don't want to get detected. And this can have what is called a chilling effect, so that people stop even thinking about these topics. They stop thinking about terms of gender, nudity, violence, anything that can get them into trouble. And they start to produce less because they think, well, I'm just going to run it up against a brick wall. So what's the point? So for me, the most dangerous censorship isn't the explicit censorship where you do something and somebody says, you're not allowed to do that. For me, the biggest danger is that people stop imagining and starting things for fear that it might get them into trouble. And at some point, they won't even be conscious of it. They will just not touch those topics anymore. That's the dystopian scenario. I don't think it has to happen, but we have to be very aware of it, that censorship works in such an insidious way that at some point we are not aware of the fact that we are censoring ourselves. And I think that is the biggest risk of generative AI, that in this world of infinite possibilities, we do not use swear words, we do not use edgy words, we do not use words that are considered undesirable. And in that way, we shift our ways of thinking away from all those fundamental territories.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that statement. Anyone would like to respond?
Yes, so generally we are discussing about using AI, and with AI we generally here in paper writing, it's basically what we are discussing is LLMs. So we have to always remember one thing, that it can give only those answer on which it is being trained. Okay, so let's suppose it is trained on a particular discriminating against a certain community, discriminating you against some gender or whatever. Okay, so that is also a big risk.
Okay. So we're getting closer to our final questions, and a question to all panelists. Sort of a little bit of summary of our talk today. If you could establish one rule and abolish one rule for how authors and publishers should use AI, what would it be? Who wants to start? Nikesh, you look like you have an idea.
I was just thinking, formulating some thoughts in my mind, but yeah, sure, I can. I think if I could establish one rule for the authors, it would be around, that the fact that AI can assist in its current form, of course, AI can assist, but every AI suggested change must be authenticated by the human, in this case, the author. I think human judgment should remain the final filter, as it's the simplest way to preserve identity and accountability, and some of the examples that we spoke in this hour. I think the rule I would probably abolish is this stigma around AI usage. I think AI or automation does have a role to play. I think the usage should be normalized, and responsible disclosure should be encouraged. And much like acknowledgements in research writing, I think transparency builds trust, and whereas hiding AI use just undermines it. And finally, I think for the publishers, I would maybe abolish the over reliance on AI generated text detection tools. They are often uh, blunt instruments that may offer a one-sided lens. Instead, the rule that I would establish is to use a multi-pronged approach to identify misconduct that combines signals like plagiarism, image manipulation, unusual submission patterns, rather than just depending and relying on a single tool or one indicator.
Okay, thank you. So authors are still responsible and should always check. Yeah, I think this is also, someone wrote this in the chat at the very beginning of the webinar. Always fact check any AI output.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, who wants to go next?
Yeah, I can go next. So I always encourage to use the AI, but be very frank that you have used AI. And in my experience, I think if you ask any person that, or any student for that matter, that have you used AI for doing your homework on assignment, most often than not, he or she will refuse that I have done everything myself. So I think there is a sort of a stigma attached with using AI. I don't think it's a bad tool. The only thing, if you have used, then acknowledge that whatever I have done, I have taken help of this particular tool. Like we always acknowledge our lab members, supervisor, even we acknowledge sometimes reviewers also, because sometimes we get very good comments about our work.
Okay. And what rule would you abolish?
Mhm. Abolish. So I don't think we are in a phase where we can abolish AI. No,
Okay.
we
And
can't do that now.
yeah, okay. Yeah. Who wants to go next?
Well, I can go. I would also establish one rule. Well, I would also go for find a way to establish an acceptable disclosure of how AI has been used. I mean, really also of not only that it had been used, but how. I think this is still a process that we have to learn how to describe that actually. And then maybe abolish a rule. Well, I'm also not a big fan of using AI as a gatekeeper in terms of, for example, content. I mean, you can totally see that AI can detect patterns of, there's some strange behavior in applications or whatever. But when it comes to first content, for content checks, for example, I mean, this would mean that I guess the simplest way to preserve diversity in those kind of things would be to have humans still do that, pick the right publications, pick the right papers, these kind of things, and not set any rules for go over a paper when it's handed in and let AI figure out if it would fit or not, and then send it to the reviewer. This is something that I would abolish.
Okay, thank you.
I guess the rule that I would like to add is that I think we are at the moment very reactive in academia, in the sense that there's all this stuff happening. We're like, okay, we're going to either reject this or we're going to jump on the bandwagon and join it. But it's very reactive. And I feel like one of the rules that I would love to add, which is more a sort of rule, I guess, of behavior and of attitude, is that we shouldn't just respond to what generative AI is doing. We should use it as an opportunity to rethink what we believe research is right now, what it should be, and how it should change in the future. In the sense that I really see that this flood of generative AI also is potentially a really great opportunity to get rid of a lot of the pitfalls and damaging mechanisms of science, and to make science better in a lot of ways. But for that, we have to feel like we can change the paradigm and to abolish this publish or perish culture. And the only way we can do that is to really have a sense of empowerment. And by this, I mean that it's not just the researchers, but it's also the publishers. What kind of publishing climate ultimately do you want to create? Do you just want to keep putting it out there as much as possible? Or do you want to really go to a different research model? Do you want to change things? And I feel like every researcher and every publishing house should really feel like they are not just responding to generative AI, but they are also shaping the future of research by rethinking what research is. The rule that I would like to abolish, and this is a huge danger that I see, is that, for instance, if you use one of these AI automated academic search engines. It goes through all the articles on a certain subject, it takes out a couple of them and turns it into a summary, right? Which creates a new kind of ranking of relevant articles and authors in a very intransparent way. Like the Google algorithm, the Google Scholar algorithm is already very intransparent. But with these softwares, I've no idea why they selected that these 5 papers are the most important ones and all the other ones aren't. I think it's absolutely fundamental, and it might be utopian that these algorithms are turned into more transparent ones, especially in academia. Otherwise, we'll have all the biases constantly pushing forward, papers written by successful white men, and we will create an even more uneven publishing system where we create even more invisibility of all the, young, female, non-Western papers being put out there. So I think that is, for me, the most fundamental rule when it comes to summarizing algorithms of academia, that they have to be more transparent, and we have to demand more transparent ones.
All right, thank you. Yeah, thank you. I think maybe after this panel today, we decide on writing a paper with the rules we want to do and don't want to do. And the big question is, we as an author group, how would we use AI? I don't know. Okay, we have we have answered a lot of questions during the panel. I still see that there are 2 questions here open, which we take on now. But before we do that, I want to appreciate everyone's time today and make a formal close of the session today, and then get into the last questions. So first of all, my big thanks goes to the panel for taking the time and presenting their views. I really appreciate that the views are nuanced, not opposite, different, but nuanced in different way, and I think this is very good. And my second thanks goes to all the participants today. I hope you found this session valuable for you, and you had new insights and new ideas how you want to use AI in the future, or whether you don't want to use AI, or how you want to use AI in the future. You will receive a recording of this session. Thanks again for taking the time today. So it's officially closed. You can leave the room, and we will take on another at least 2 questions. I promised we answer all. So here it goes. I'm going to read it again. So how do you see being time efficient in the context of writing papers, doctoral thesis, with or without using AI? I think no one would ask an LLM to write a paper from A to Z, but rather trying to get support from different kinds of AI to shape different sections of the paper: introductions, method, discussions. Yeah, I think the fact that the participant who asked the question thinks that no one would use an LLM to write a paper from A to Z. Nikesh would probably have a few examples against that, thinking of the paper mills and everyone. But yeah, maybe this is also a question we can answer from our current professors and researchers. So, Professor Manish, you probably don't use a LLM to write a paper from A to Z. Where are the stages you would, of course not, otherwise I wouldn't ask you, but where are the stages you consider using AI when writing?
So mostly I use AI to polish the English.
Yes. +1 if I would have to write a paper. Okay. Any more thoughts on that question?
So I don't think if someone want to fabricate to create a paper out of thin air, then one can use AI from A to Z. Otherwise, like methodology and result, you can't use AI. It's already there. You have run the experiment, you have designed the methodology.
Yeah.
So the only part that's remains to be written is about introduction and the discussion. So I think AI can be used only to write discussion Means I think so. This is my personal opinion. I am not enforcing on this on anyone. So you have a result and then you want to see how it goes to the known knowledge. So then you can use AI to search for new papers or gel it with whatever existing knowledge is there.
Mhm. Okay. Any further views on that question?
Well, I think if you are, I mean, if you really like if AI supports the writing process, that's fine. I think if you have ever tried to get a good result from AI for like a whole section of a paper, for example, then you realize very quickly that it doesn't sound perfectly right. And it takes also a long time to correct that and to figure out why it doesn't sound like you and why something is maybe a little bit off and these kind of things. So I think in the end it's still a question if it helps a lot in terms of like time efficiency. I would rather think it's the other way around. You can get some, can have some ideas for structuring and stuff, but then and it helps you find errors in grammar, spelling, whatever kind of issues. But especially if it's your PhD thesis, you want to have it sound like you, right? So I guess it's going to be really hard to let it write you like the total paper and then correct everything. So it gives the more like personal touch in the end. But that's my opinion. So.
Yeah. I mean, this is we didn't cover on purpose today. Yeah, we know about the bad actors who fabricate papers. They can be recognized with just DOIs that don't exist. And we didn't cover this here today on purpose because we are not bad actors. So we want to focus on the good and how to make use of it best. All right, and one more questions. How are national research priorities and policies shaping the limits of AI adoption in research and publishing? And who ultimates decide where those boundaries lie?
I could try
Yeah.
answering that. I think one of the issues is that because there's a lot of hype around generative AI and there's that runaway train metaphor, right? Get on or get lost in the desert fear. I think a lot of national interests are dominated by geopolitical events, right? So the moment there's a massive development in China or in the United States, it affects EU policy. If the EU decides on a sort of general policy that affects all its member states, it again makes China and America look up and say, okay, we're going to respond to this. So for instance, if the EU focuses more on ethical AI, do other continents actually focus on less, on more, easy to use AI, or do they also compete on the ethical AI level? So I think a lot of countries, I think the issue is that a lot of nations have to come up firstly with their own policies, but they also are usually working in a system of alliances and also of assumptions, which means that they are moving along not just with international interests, but also with assumptions of what other places are going to do. So for instance, I know that a lot of people were quite surprised to find out that China is a leader when it comes to ethical AI, right? Because reputationally, there's this idea of, the free West and Europe and human rights, etc. So also, there can be misinterpretations, there can be different assumptions, there can be fears, and they can also shape a country's policy just as much as specific alliances and economical interests. So I think one of the main issues when it comes to creating an AI policy is an awareness that a lot of it is based on hype and a lot of it is based on alliances and on economical interests. And it's very hard for certain countries to keep up with that and to still maintain their own AI policy within all of that. And that is a huge concern.
All right. Okay. But thank you again. I think we did our job in answering all questions today. But yeah, a lot of people are still in the session. So thanks for your patience and I guess your interest in hearing the answers to last questions. So we are unofficially closed now as well. Thanks again, everyone who joined. Thanks the panel. I hope to see you soon all.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.